We've got Merritt Centennials head coach and GM Luke Pierce on the line with us for our weekly recap of the hockey club. Luke, thanks so much for taking the time to chat again here this morning, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, Brian.
So it was a pretty interesting week for you guys. You came back with a Thursday night game in your first game back from the holiday break in Trail against the Smoke Eaters. I mean, I think a lot of people around the community know what happened in that one. You guys were dominant, but ultimately come away with a 3-2 loss.
Yeah, it's a really strange feeling for us. I mean, I don't think we've had as dominating of a performance as we did on Thursday yet this year, and that's the game. I guess you have those nights where you seem to do everything you can right and fail to come out with the victory. So, obviously giving up 3 early on is tough, but I still thought we were playing well, and we finished that game tremendously, and a lot of really positive things there, and it's unfortunate that we had the loss, but hopefully we can go back there on Friday and try and reclaim our victory there.
So how about carrying over that effort to Saturday night's game to kick off 2011, a home game against the Quesnel Millionaires, in which you ended up being down 3-0 in that one too? Yeah,
I think there was regardless of how you try to keep the guys positive about the effort we had on Thursday and try and convince them not to hang their heads a little bit. It's tough for them to come over or get over that, and I think you saw a little bit of a hangover there on Saturday as far as our effort, and we weren't as good, that's for sure. We gave up the 3 early ones again, and we weren't as physical. We weren't as hungry for pucks, and you saw about a 5-minute span there in the second period where we decided to get back to our game plan and our level of work ethic and managed to turn the game around and squeak out a victory.
How about the fact on Saturday night that you managed to get a goal from every single line that you had out there?
Well, it's obviously a big positive for us, and it's something that we've kind of identified as strength of our team is not necessarily a huge amount of scoring from everybody, but just enough to chip in from different groups. And whether it's nice to see everybody get involved in one game, but we've had over the last few weeks and month that seems to be a different line that steps up and carries for us in the victories that we've had, and whether it be a Boken Fours line against Trail at home before the break, and Wall's line the night before or the week before against Westside, and then Jeff's line seems to contribute fairly consistently anyway. So it's a good thing for sure to have that kind of depth, and we're going to need that to continue on.
So going into Trail this Friday, obviously you've got to think that there's some revenge on your minds, and also when it comes to the Smoke Eaters mentally, they know that they probably stole one last week.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, something we're going to have to continue to work on preparing our guys is to go back in there with the same effort. And even though you weren't rewarded for it last week, we've got to have the mindset that if you put forth that type of effort, you're going to win 9 times out of 10. And we're going to have to try and do that again. I mean, it's, I wouldn't doubt that we have a little bit of a lull there to get going, but I think our guys will be hungry enough to go back in there and try and come up with a victory however we can. And we know for the same token that Trail's going to want to prove that, they weren't a team that just solely relied on goaltending, that they can perform as well.
Now, how about the fact the mental side of things? This is it. You're officially into the stretch drive at this point. We can say now that the season ends next month, which is absolutely incredible to imagine. But, this is the time when you got to ramp it up, I would think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's this is kind of the point in the year where we start to really, see what type of team we are and find out what we're made of. And we're pretty confident in the group we have. I think we're a well-built team for stretch drives and for playoffs. And we're kind of at a funny point in the standings where we've got a bit of a gap on the teams below us, and there's a bit of a gap between us and the teams ahead of us. So we're going to continue to try, obviously, and work our way up the standings. And at the same time, I think it gives us some flexibility to experiment a little bit with some things and try out some different systems or structures and really fine-tune our game as we head into the playoffs here.
Now, coming up on Monday next week, we've got the BC Hockey League and Hockey Canada carding deadline. You weren't busy at the deadline last year, just making the one deal, Andrew Pickering for Sam Gemmell. And you're in a situation, I think, this season where it's desirable because, A, you've got 20-year-old spots open, and B, you can add to your roster without necessarily looking at subtracting any players. What do you think you're going to be doing in the next 5-6 days, or do you think you'll be doing anything at all?
Well, I think, yeah, like you said, we're at a good spot, and we can feel confident that if we don't do anything, we're still happy with the group. But at the same time, we've got room and we've got flexibility if we do want to add or make some changes. And I'm going to be fairly busy as far as, calling to see what's happening around and see if there is anything that really piques our interest. But at the same time, we're not in a panic to really, make a change with somebody or add something in here. We would like to probably add another defenseman just to give us some depth there as far as, injury-wise and stability. And we've got a few things we're looking at that way that we would be able to accomplish without subtracting anybody. We're going to, open the phone lines a little bit regarding our 19-year-olds because we don't want to be in a situation where we have a big bundle of them going into the off season that we have to move. And if there is something that makes it easier for us come the off season, then we'll probably consider that. But at the same time, we know we can make the changes in the summer if it's something that we feel is going to not provide us an advantage going down the stretch here. So a lot of different scenarios will play out, I think, and but at the same time, if we end up staying status quo, then we'll be a pretty happy group.
Well, and in keeping with your 3-year strategic plan, is it tempting a little bit to look at it and go for it this year because your team is playing pretty well right now and you might just be able to add that one piece? Or do you worry about maybe disrupting the chemistry because, as you said, you've got a pretty good group that you'd be happy going forward with?
Yeah, it is. We're kind of in a funny spot, and I think it's a testament to the way these guys have played and come together as a group. But we do have to keep in mind that we had set out a plan for stability and for long-term success here in Merritt. And if there's a move that we feel is just too tough to pass up as far as providing us with some long-term stability and development of young players, then it's something we might have to look at. And it's going to be a funny deadline as far as the rest of the teams in the league because everybody seems to feel that there's no clear front runner, especially in our division, and everyone has a shot. So there's not going to be a lot of so-called sellers. So if you were, looking at selling a piece of your roster, the price you would get in return would probably be fairly high. So we'll have to consider those different things and see who steps up with an offer that might be of interest for us long term. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're providing a good, roster heading into the stretch and keeping the fans interested and continuing to build on what we've developed here so far.
Well, and it's a pretty busy time for you, too. You've got 3 games in 4 days with the deadline sandwiched in the middle because, I guess it's 3 games in 5 days, but you play, Friday, Saturday, and then you've got Sunday, Monday off, and then you play another game here at home against Salmon Arms. So do you look at maybe doing things prior to Friday's game, or do you wait and see what happens on Monday, or what's your mindset sort of going into the day?
Well, in a perfect world, Brian, I'd love to have things done by Friday.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a funny thing the way this stuff works out. I mean, last year with the Andrew Pickering, we were on the phone until the last second of allowable time, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not a guy that likes to sit and bargain and use time as a bargaining chip. If a deal makes sense, then let's get it done and let's move on. But doesn't seem to be the way things work in this league, and guys like to try and play the odds against each other. But we'll see. You never know. Something comes up and it works for us early. We'll get it done, and then we can focus on moving on with our team and not let January 10th be a huge distraction to us. But if at the same time we have to take all the time allowed